CNN for live coverage of Hurricane Ivan all night long.
We were headed to Memphis for our vacation.
On Sunday.
The eye of Hurricane Ivan, Category 4 storm, is now a little more than 100 miles away from Mobile, Alabama. Anderson Cooper is in that city beside Mobile Bay, and he's already feeling the effects of hurricane force winds there. Anderson, what's the latest?
Yeah, you might say that, sort of feeling the effects. That's an understatement, I think. I've actually come up with a solution for the high winds. I've actually employed the much bigger, stronger CNN meteorologist, Rob Marciano, to block the wind for me. So I'm actually getting a little bit of a respite here from the winds, though sadly I don't think Rob is doing very well. Rob, how strong are these winds, and how strong is it going to get?
Well, according to this little doohickey, they're over 65 miles an hour. Believe it or not, at the airport, official readings still not gusting over 50. Now, we are in a bit of a wind tunnel in that we have some buildings surrounding us, so certainly they whip around a little bit faster, but been saying all night, it often feels a lot worse than it actually is. And
well, now we hear 135 mile an hour winds. That doesn't necessarily mean 135 mile an hour winds are going to hit right here.
No, that's a really secluded section of the storm, the northeast quadrant of the storm. And typically when we say those are sustained winds of the storm coming in, very rarely do they verify in more than one spot. So there'll be very select places that are actually getting winds of over 110, 120 miles an hour.
My plan of having you upwind from me is not working out too well because I actually can't even really see you in this storm. It's really amazing. The wind is blowing so hard and the rain coming so horizontal. You can't even look into it. It just hits right in your eyes, feeling like a knife in here. And again, we keep talking about that storm surge. We can't see the water from where we're at, but last I heard Max Mayfield was saying 10 to 15 feet. Do you think that still holds true?
I think so. The only thing that would save us, in the last hour and a half, if you've been watching the satellite picture, it took a little bit of a jog to the east. If it continues on that track, maybe jogs a little bit more east, we'll be on the west side of that storm, and that's key. That's key to getting less of a storm surge. So we're going to get the winds, obviously, no matter what. But the storm surge is definitely dependent on the track of this thing, and if it continues up the gut, we're getting them at 10 to 15, maybe even as high as 18 feet storm surge overnight tonight, tomorrow morning. Jogs a little bit to the right, we're pretty much in the clear.
So how fast is the storm moving right now? And you said it jogged a little bit to the east. Do we have a good sense of exactly when it's going to make landfall, or is it still kind of unpredictable?
Well, it's still on track, northerly moving at 12 miles an hour. That's slowed 2 miles an hour, so. But you do the math, it's about 100 miles just south of us, less than 100 miles offshore at 12 miles an hour. It's going to be here in 5 or 6 hours. But obviously the effects out ahead of that thing, we're going to feel them from now until the eye wall comes true.
Hey, Anderson.
You've been a meteorologist for a while. Yeah, Miles.
Can Rob hear me? I don't know if he can hear me, but I'm curious. I remember, and I know you remember it, how slow Francis was to move in. This storm is moving much faster. How does that affect its strength one way or another?
All right, let me ask Rob. How does the speed of the storm affect its strength? Francis was much slower. This is moving, 12, 15 miles. How does that change things? How does it compare to Francis?
Well, holy smokes. Saddle up, kids. Well, Francis was a slow mover, so in the right quadrant, that's where you're going to see the strongest winds. You see that because you've got added velocity as far as how fast the thing is moving. The fact that this is moving faster than Francis, that adds another 10 miles an hour on the right side of the storm. Plus, it's much stronger. It's a Category 4 at this point as opposed to Cat 2, which was Francis.
I have no idea what he said because, frankly, I can't hear a thing he's saying.
Don't worry, we heard it here.
Answered your question.
We heard it here, Anderson. Hey, you guys, are you on the eastern side of Mobile Bay? Is that where you are?
Yeah, we're right in downtown Mobile, and we were afraid that we were going to be getting the northeast quadrant of the storm, but as Rob is saying, we may now be a little bit west of it, which would certainly be some good news, though in these high winds, it's hard to imagine it getting much worse, but we know it's going on.
And I assume that could make a tremendous difference. All right, tell us just quickly, if you've seen, I know you're right now.
I got all the time in the world, Miles.
Miles, I want to say one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've spent my entire career as a meteorologist telling people not to go out in these things, and this knucklehead's dragging me out into the teeth of this storm. We'll be here all night.
All right. We'll check back in with you guys in a little bit, and by all means, please be safe out there. And, you know, a lot of people ask us about that, and they do take tremendous precautions. And while it looks like they're very much in harm's way, they do a lot of things to protect themselves in those situations. What they're trying to do more than anything is illustrate a point for all of us and help us understand the power of these storms. The governors of Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana all declared states of emergency earlier this week as it became clear that Ivan was aiming for their coastlines. Now, of course, it appears that Alabama will bear the full brunt of all this as Ivan comes to land. Joining us now from Clanton, Alabama, is Bruce Bauman, who is the director of the Alabama Emergency Management Association. Mr. Bauman, good to have you with us.
How are you tonight, Miles?
Bring us up to date on the number of people evacuated